Hello, Fox Fairy, where I talk about marginalized subjects from a marginalized viewpoint, while I learn to draw. Hello, it's me, Fox again, and today I'll be talking about my experience as a neurodivergent person, and how that affects my ability to perform certain tasks, and how that's been affecting my life. For those of you who don't know, I suffer from tics as a result of ADHD. My ADHD is combined, hyperactive, and inattentive. Let's start with the largest hindrance to my life, tics. Tics have really made it difficult for me to feel comfortable in any public setting. As you know, tics are involuntary, which means you don't do them on purpose, but you have to physically hold them back. So, this process takes energy, and once you run out of energy, you're kind of screwed in that sense. So there have been plenty of times where I haven't been paying attention to whether or not I'm ticking, or when I have been trying to focus on my work, or watching a movie, or anything in public, and I end up having horrible tics. Normally mine are verbal, or small motor tics, or breath-related tics, which I guess you could consider motor tics. I also have really bad parroting tics, where in certain conversations, certain words just feel the need to bubble up again. If I were to explain how it feels, it's like my thoughts are being played in the wrong channels, and sometimes when they play in the channel that makes me move or make physical noise, instead of thinking them or processing things properly. Now, I haven't been diagnosed with Tourette's, but I have been told that I have ADHD, because I do not meet the criteria for Tourette's syndrome. However, there are some small cases in which tics come as a result of ADHD, specifically hyperactive ADHD, so I would consider it a hyperactive trait. On the hyperactive side, some things that I struggle with are anxiety and stress. Oftentimes, I experience a lot of anxiety and stress, especially in social situations. But I have a pretty easy time concealing this because I would consider myself quite good at masking, except for when it comes to tics, and I'm always exhausted, so masking those is very difficult. There have been times where I just wasn't physically ready to enter a situation, and it was very difficult to get through any sort of event, just because of the sheer amount of people and activities going on there. Next up is understimulation. Oftentimes in boring classrooms, or at work, or while I'm doing any sort of important task, my body feels the need to be moving or doing something more important. I find myself singing or humming, or any other kind of stim that my body feels like it needs. It can be very difficult, especially because these can leave me physically exhausted as a result of my mental need for capacity, or else I would become mentally exhausted. I find myself often having to make a trade-off between my mental energy and my physical energy, especially when it comes to a mixture of stims and tics, as a result of understimulation. Yes, I know it sounds contradictory that someone with ADHD could struggle with overstimulation and understimulation, but since my ability to direct my attention and focus in certain directions is broken, it makes filtering out certain things very difficult, like loud noises or chaotic environments. I've learned to manage loud environments with lots of people, like cafeterias, for example, but loud vehicles and emergency vehicles oftentimes really hurt my ears and cause severe stress. Also, situations where there are a few people who are being very loud, such as small groups or gatherings with chaotic people, it can be really painful and stressful to me, considering the environment is so chaotic and it's not supposed to be a chaotic environment. This is why, normally at all times, I bring my headphones with me. I consider them my ear protectors. You wouldn't see me in public without a pair of headphones around my neck, just in case something loud or chaotic happens that makes me need them, or else I become overstressed. As for neutral effects, things that don't necessarily harm my life, we have hyperfixation and hyperfocus. I have regular hyperfixations about a lot of things. If you don't know what a hyperfixation is a sudden and extreme interest for something. Oftentimes, there can be short term or long term hyperfixation, and oftentimes it results in you dissecting and researching the hyperfixation or indulging in it quite a lot. Having a hyperfixation to something can cause you to become hyperfocused on that thing. Now, it's important to remember that hyperfixations are not chosen. You are not always hyperfixated on something that you like. You can be interested in something that you don't want to be interested in. And these interests are especially hard to control. Think of it as a sudden urge to understand something or to consume it. An example of some of my current hyperfixations is changing my YouTube editing style, art, Terraria, biology, linguistics, learning Russian, and Steven Universe. Hyperfocus is a sometimes beneficial and sometimes malignant trait. It means that sometimes I feel the need to perform certain tasks, and I put that need to perform certain tasks above my personal needs. For example, I could probably write a 2,000 word essay on something that I'm interested in 30 minutes. But I might put aside my need to use the restroom or eat foods or drink water in order to complete this as fast as possible and to include as much in it as I possibly can. It allows me to be very creative and make very awesome and interesting things. For example, I've created several tabletop RPGs and I've created several designs for video games in several different programs. It really feels like I'm expressing myself in a way that I haven't before. It's such a consuming moment and it feels so fulfilling in the moment. However, oftentimes the effects of this come later, and the exhaustion and the needs that you've been putting off come back to you right away. An example of me having a hyperfocus was when this channel was begun, I hyperfocused recording a bunch of audio and working really hard to get my first few videos up. Some of this audio I still haven't uploaded, and I think some of it really isn't good enough. But I was hyper focused on producing as much content as physically possible, and I wasn't thinking about that at the time. Though the audio that I've discarded, I will be doing videos on, I just didn't feel that the audio I recorded was good enough. So I will get back to them in the future. Up next is my inattentive symptoms. For negative symptoms, I would say that I am very forgetful, to an extreme extent. Most days I leave my wallet at work or I leave my apron at work on all the way home. I have so many aprons that I need to return to my workplace because I just keep forgetting that I have them on. I've left my backpack in several strange places. I've left important things like chargers, my phone, all kinds of things that a normal person would have tabs on, just completely out of the way. And yes, it is normal and neurotypical to leave things behind. However, to the extreme that it happens with me, it is not. Another case, for example, is I'm not good at social cues. Oftentimes, in a social situation, I'm not focusing on whether someone saying something is sarcasm. I just need to get the tasks done as efficiently and as high quality as possible. So, I'm not going to be paying attention to whether you're using sarcasm or whether you are trying to make any sort of innuendo because I'm busy. My mind is elsewhere. And taking the time to think about what someone actually means when they're talking can be difficult because that's not where my brain's processes are right now. It takes extra effort to understand what someone really means when they're trying to talk to me. Furthermore, it can be extremely difficult for me to focus on something that doesn't pique my interest. Remember previously I had said that it could take me 30 minutes, 15 minutes to do a 5,000 word script? Well, on the contrary, if I'm not interested in something, it would take all of my mental and emotional strength to write one 1,000 word script in 2 days. Just because of the amount of energy it takes to force myself to focus on something. I don't have any neutral traits of my inattentiveness because it's overall just very negative. I'm often a big break in the stigma that everyone with ADHD is obviously super hyperactive and energetic and in your face and loud, but that's not who I am. I am a very relaxed and calm person on the exterior, and I like to maintain that. It's just that on the inside, there's a lot more going on than what I may portray on the outside. Plus, I'm pretty good at masking my symptoms, I believe, except for tics, like I've said before. Something else that I experience is dysgraphia as a result of dyslexia, which can make it difficult for me to write out and read certain sentences. And sometimes it affects my understanding of language patterns. This is why it's difficult for me to use certain types of neo or xenopronoun, because it takes extra mental processing to try and fit them into a sentence when they are not established words in the language that I speak. So I have to do extra thinking and extra analyzation in order to be able to puzzle this together. If you were to listen to any of my scripts, I struggle enough with language in regular times because so much of my videos are edited out due to my lack of ability to piece together a language on its own. Overall, I would say that's a general breakdown of my experience. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, there's a lot of misinformation about what it means to be neurodivergent online and what people who are neurodivergent experience and don't experience, and I feel like that's very harmful and it causes a lot of issues. And there's a lot of stigma around having neurodiverse people. I feel like it's important to get my experience out there because experiences of people who are self diagnosed or undiagnosed tend to take up spaces of neurodivergent people, and people who actually have those neurotypes are often misrepresented because of the huge amount of people who are self diagnosed or misdiagnosed. That's all for today, and I hope that you enjoyed my video. If you felt like this was really relatable, please drop a subscribe and check out my link tree in the comment section below. Alright, love ya.